Welcome to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit.
Oh, well, he's very popular.
And today it's Macro Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Where we show you the big picture and how you can take advantage of it.
Show me the money!
And now, the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome to the show. Please come inside.
All right, welcome. It is your lunch hour. Mr. Credit here. Macro Monday, guaranteeing to make you smarter than everyone else. And we've got a very special show. I'm all kinds of fired up today about a specific topic, which we'll get to with our guest expert panel. Starting off, we've got, for the first time in the studio, it's hard for me to believe this is the first time you've been on the show, but Ginger Proffitt is here with ERA Property Movers. She's also the author at EsconditoHousePros.com. Ginger, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, Derek.
Yeah, we've looked at properties together. Ginger's to help me find a house in the country. We spent a lot of time together, so it's hard for me to believe this is your first time on the program, but it's great to have you here.
It feels like I've been here before.
Great. That's what we like to hear. We also have another first-time guest on the show today. Mike Sedloff is here from MRP and MichaelSedloff.com. What's up, Mike?
I'm here, and I'm glad to be here, Derek. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to have you, man. So before I get into the topic that's kind of burning on the inside for me, Mike, you wrote a book last year. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with our discussion topics today, but I think it's really cool when someone actually takes, because I've tried, to be honest with you, I've tried multiple times to try to write a book, and I always get distracted to the point of not finishing. And it really is one of those things, few things in my life that I've not finished, that I've started. So I know this took a significant effort, Mike, for you to write this book. Now, the title of the book is Bella Will Rally. Tell us a little bit about what the book is about.
Derek, the book actually took about 3 years to write, so you're correct. It takes a while. I enjoyed the process. It's loosely based on my mother's family. It's based on a very exciting time. It's based on a young woman who grows up in a family that has some problems. Gives her some problems. It's in a time in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s when we had all sorts of issues, including the Great Depression. Wow. And she struggles with family issues and societal issues and overcomes those issues and actually becomes a rally car driver. And it's a fun book. It's got some exciting history in it, and it is available on Amazon.com.
Okay, very cool. So you can actually check this out. Bella Will Rally. And rally spelled like a rally car. Bella is spelled like you think it would be spelled. Bella Will Rally by Michael Sedloff. Great stuff. You can find that on Amazon.com. I look forward to reading this, Michael. Appreciate the free copy. I'm assuming that's a free copy, right?
It is a free copy, Derek.
Did you sign this thing yet?
I'll sign it.
I hope so. You'll sign it for me. All right. So, Ginger, real quick, before I get to this, short sales.
Yes.
Something that is it dissipating, or because I heard short sales are over with, and then I keep seeing them pop up. So what's the state of short sales right now?
All right. They have dramatically reduced. However, there's still a few stragglers that are out there, and we will continue to see them, I think, for probably another 2 years.
Really?
Yes. After that, I don't think we will see very many.
Okay. So this is still something that's out there, and I kind of realized it myself when I found out over the weekend. And I look at a lot of different properties. I'm still keeping an eye on the market, or keeping an eye on things. I saw something that was bothersome to me, or at least it caught me as conversational, to say the least.
All right.
Now, we have a short sale listing. Okay. Now, in the remarks of this short sale listing, which appears to be a pretty good deal, it is stated that the buyer will pay a 1% negotiation fee. Okay. So, in other words, the listing agent is saying that they want whomever is writing an offer to purchase the property to include a special addendum in that offer that says that the buyer, will pay the fee or a fee associated with the negotiation of the short sale. So at first glance, I saw that and I go, well, wow, they're really they're really asking a lot of the buyer here. I mean, you've got a short sale to begin with, which means this could take who knows how long, who knows if you'll even get it.
That's exactly right.
You know?
Yes.
And then they're also asking to pay a fee on top of that. And so it seemed a little askew to me.
All right.
Ginger?
What's going on is the agent either does not know how or does not want to negotiate with the bank. So normally they are hiring a third party who is going to be doing the negotiation with the bank.
Short sale negotiation service.
Yes, exactly. And so it's going to be an additional, usually 1% is not uncommon, although depending on who they use, it's going to be less. Well, the seller is walking away with nothing on a short sale. So they just pick up their bags and leave. They're getting no cash whatsoever. Right. So they cannot go to the seller to do that. So instead, they are hiring a third party. Which can be a benefit. If you have an agent who does not know how to do short sales, I would far rather pay someone who knows what they're doing, because it is a complicated and a time-consuming process, and everything has to be done exactly right. If you mess up, you can make the whole process start over again, or you can even run the risk of the property going into bankruptcy, or either a bankruptcy or a foreclosure, depending on the circumstances of the seller.
Right.
So because of that, there are times when I see that and I think it's really not all that bad. Now, another way to overcome that is the banks will usually pay a full commission to the real estate agents. So that can also be split between the two agents if
so
they
2.5,
desire.
2.5.
2.5, 2.5. Or what we do is we do our own negotiation, unless it's an extremely difficult short sale, in which case I have an attorney that I work with who specializes in short sales, and he then takes it over. However, as the listing agent, we usually absorb that cost.
Okay. So that's what I would expect. So you tell me, based on what you know, is this out of bounds or is of a request to make?
It's not out of bounds, but you have to take that into consideration as far as the price you're willing to offer on the home.
Right? And so, and then based on that, isn't there some sort of, I don't want to use the word ethical lightly, but there seems there's some sort of fiduciary breach. If it is the selling agent's job to get the highest, best possible offer for the seller, right? Now, whether that's, in this case, a short seller, a homeowner, who may have some sort of deficiency or whatever it is associated with the difference, in the short sale, or it's the bank, which is ultimately going to get the money associated. They still have that duty,
exactly.
Right? Now,
and their responsibility is to the seller.
It is to the seller.
Their responsibility is not to the bank.
Right. So it's specifically to the seller, which is to get the highest possible dollar amount. And when you stick a fee on the front end, it seems to me that would not be accomplishing that, or not even would not even allow for all potential candidates who might want to make an offer on that property might see that and go, a $5,000 some dollar fee. It's a $500 some thousand dollar property.
Right.
$5 some $1,000 fee here just to write. I mean, you know what I mean?
But first of all, it only happens if you get the property. Okay. So you're not paying it, and it's not something you pay up front.
Okay.
It only happens if you get the property. And depending on who they are using and what their own personal capabilities are, it might be the only way to guarantee that that property is going to become yours, or that it's even going to be approved.
Okay.
And so, is it irritating? Of course it's irritating. You as a buyer wants to spend as little as possible.
Sure.
But it can also be negotiated. At the time you put that offer in, you can negotiate that fee.
Gotcha.
Now, where it gets even trickier is if there's a second on that short sale. And the bank will offer usually anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to the second. There's a lot of seconds out there, companies that will not accept that. So they might want an additional $5,000 to $15,000. And at the time that comes up, who's going to pay it? The only person that has the ability to pay it is the buyer.
Yeah.
So you might get to the end of a short sale and find out that the second is not willing to cooperate unless they get some additional money. And then you have to get the first to agree to allow that money to go to the second. So this is why it gets complicated and why you really do need somebody who knows what they're doing in the process.
And I totally understand all that, and I like some of the other solutions you provided. I think the idea, I think 2.5 is the way it should be. I mean, frankly, it's like that's what makes sense if you really want to say, okay, hey, we're going to absorb this cost to do this, because typically the short sale negotiation companies only get paid upon closure of the deal as well.
Everyone gets paid upon the closure of the deal.
Yeah, so there's that way no one really has to have that particular burden by themselves, especially the buyer.
There are numerous ways that you can go about it. When I take a short sale listing, I usually take it at 8%. And the reason I take it at 8% is because I know I'm going to be negotiating with the bank.
Gotcha.
I've got a much stronger position if I start at 8 versus starting at 5.
Try to get 7, then everyone
That's
can get
right.
3, right?
And so also the amount that you pay the selling agent can be adjusted. So if you're going to be getting 6%, then you can pay that selling agent 2.5%, which gives you 0.5% to work with. Gotcha. So there's lots of different ways that it can be dealt with and negotiated.
Agreed. And I would have to say personally, I think that having the buyer pay the negotiation fee is the worst one. Michael, am I out of my mind here? Am I just overboard journalist guy right now?
No, Derek, you're not out of your mind. I do think, however, that the issue probably diminishes fairly quickly over time simply because the amount of distressed properties are diminishing. So there are probably a buyer is probably more likely not to be buying a short sale than to be buying a short sale in this market, and I think that will actually buyers will be buying fewer short sales as time goes on. And the only other point that I would add is if you have an agent experience like Ginger who really knows how to deal with a short sale, which is a complicated and a long-term process, then she's likely going to get the best price for you. So that added cost may technically not mean that you're paying, it may actually mean you're paying less for the property in the long run because the negotiation is done properly. If you have an agent who's not experienced in short sales, they're either potentially not going to get the deal done, or you may end up paying a higher price because the agent just doesn't have the skill set. And that's a way to look at it, too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective because we hadn't really talked about that. How hard and fast are the negotiations, Ginger, when it comes to a bank stepping in? Because at some point you're really negotiating with the bank, right? I mean, I know that the duties are to the seller, but the bank has to say so.
You almost immediately begin negotiating with the bank. And it's not even the bank. It is the investor that's holding the paper. Probably the worst experience I had was in trying to deal with the Bank of Germany. Who held the paper. You want to talk about tricky. It just went on.
Were you using Morse code, or, I mean, how did you figure?
It's not easy. They're very fluent in English, though.
Okay,
it's a little easier, but even, I've had investors who are in India. I've had investors who are in China who are holding that money, and the bank is simply servicing it. So that's the person that's got to go along with it. And that's part of what takes so long to figure it out. What you as a buyer are looking for is you're looking at the bottom line. You add all of your cost in. You look at the condition of the property because a short sale is never going to be in as good of a condition as an owner-occupied property where the owner has the ability financially to and the motivation to upkeep and maintain the property. So you've got to look at all of those things, figure out your bottom line. And a lot of times a short sale is not going to save you any money.
Okay.
A lot of times it might be more expensive in the long run once you get in and start realizing all of the things that you've got to do. So if you're going to do a short sale, my advice to you is don't fall in love. Look at it from a financial perspective. There's always another house out there. And see what you can do, because there is no guarantee that you will get it. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with the seller and what their financial background is, what their hardship is, all of these other things. and whether the bank is willing to work with you. Like I said, right now, most of the banks are willing to work with you, talking about a first. If it's a second, we get into a whole different area.
Which makes it more like blackjack versus roulette, which is what it was when it first started.
That's
so
right.
at least you have a fighting chance, but at the same time, don't fall in love. Great advice from Ginger Proffitt with ERA Property Movers in studio today, along with Michael Sedloff from michaelsedloff.com. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, they published this story in the UT, and of course I work for the UT now as the director of real estate, so I had to bring this up on my show. Has the housing recession started, is the question they asked at the Real Estate Roundtable last week. Well, we'll see what we have to say when we come back. We'll make you smarter than everyone else. It's guaranteed.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today it's Macro Monday on ESPN Radio 1700.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out on a Macro Monday. Mr. Credit here, guaranteeing to make you smarter than everyone else. We have Ginger Proffitt in the studio today with ERA Property Movers and also the author at EsconditoHousePros.com. Michael Sedloff is here as well from michaelsedloff.com. Now let me ask you about this because, okay, I don't know if you saw the article in the UT or not, but there's been a lot of talk lately. So everyone seems to be predicting the next downturn. Now, we heard economists, national economists, at a couple recent events said things like 3 to 4 years from now we'll be cycling again on the downside. I've seen some of the people that I know, kind of big money guys, saying 18 months is all we've got left in the gas tank here. So now they did this little round table at the UT, and you can find it on utsandiego.com under the real estate section. They call it the Housing Huddle. And no, of course, none of the people that they asked this question to said that we are, in a housing recession or headed toward one. And why would they say that? Because we're clearly not. But the point is that a lot of people are trying to predict the next one. And so it's fresh in our minds. And so I wonder if that is actually a really strong positive. Stay with me for a second. If it's the case that everyone is preparing for the next downturn, kind of like people have been in stocks for the past 4 years, it never happens. You only get a crash when people don't believe it's possible for a crash to happen. And then everybody's in, so everybody's on the buy side. And I'm talking kind of in stock talk now. But if everyone's on the buy side, no one's a seller, that's what you set up a bubble for. If you got a bunch of people on the sidelines going, I don't believe it, I'm going to wait, then you've got ready-made buyers in there who step in and take advantage of opportunities. They provide protection to the downside. The investors were the protection that we got in the real estate market the last time we had the crash because they were the ones who stepped up and bought properties when no one else would. They created the bottom. Their bottom is pretty low, though, because they're investors. So right. It's really got a pencil for them to get in there. But no one else was ready for it. We just simply weren't ready for it. It had been, a long time since there had been a downturn. The people who were in the market at this time, very few of them were in the market back then. The ones who were made out pretty darn well. Oh, gosh, I hate it when we're in the wrong bank. Hold on. That's the hawk screech. That's what happens when people make out like bandits. They just fly off. Anyway, it seems to me like the fact that people are concerned about it and they're looking forward to it and trying to be more cautious now might actually prevent it from happening in the future. Ginger, what do you think?
I don't see it happening, mainly because we're still in a housing shortage. We still have more people that would like to buy homes than we have houses for them.
Yeah.
I also think the new construction is a good example of where we're headed, because these people are not going to be spending their money and running the risk that these homes are not going to get sold. And if you look at what the new construction is, it is not lower income homes. It is expensive homes. The majority of the new construction in North County is upwards over $800,000.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Really, across the county, there's no discount new
That's
construction
right.
housing. I mean,
It does not exist.
no median price.
No, it does
new
not.
construction
It
housing.
does not exist. So that tells me that they are anticipating move-up buyers who are going to be able to sell the home they're in and move up into a nicer home. So I do not see it. I noticed a slowdown in North County after the fires, which I thought was kind of interesting, but because it's North County, I think everyone focused on it. But now that we've had a little bit of time to get over that, I see the market beginning to pick up. We've talked before that the market is always cyclical.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, one extreme or the other. But as we get to the end of summer, it's going to slow down. It always slows down in August. And that's because the majority of the buyers want their kids settled in school before the school year starts. So they are out shopping May, June, and the tail end in July. By August, it's going to slow down a little bit. Then it's going to pick up again in September. The one thing that is making it a little bit different this year, and I think we're going to see a little bit more robust August than we've seen before, is the fact that we have had so little inventory on the market. And any home that is priced right is selling. If I go back to January, from the 1st of January to today, my average days on the market is 35 days.
That's unbelievably low.
That is unbelievably low. And so it tells me that if the house is priced right, in a good neighborhood, and has something to offer, it's going to sell. And a lot of those offers are coming in with multiple offers, not just one. So more than one offer. I don't see any signs of it slowing down. The one unknown, as far as I'm concerned, that I worry about is interest rates. Because I can see that if interest goes up, that is going to dramatically make a difference. If it just goes up by 1 point, if you'd normally be able to afford a $600,000 home, you're going to be able to afford a $540,000. And I'm sure Mike can agree with that as far as just 1% difference. And it makes such a difference in how much you're paying on a monthly basis.
Yeah, and I wonder if something like that happens, does it just push people out of the market, or does it push them to a lower price point?
Pushes them to a lower price point, but we have a dichotomy. Most of the buyers feel that they're paying top dollar. Most of the sellers are still waiting to get their equity out of the home. So as far as the sellers are looking at it, they think the market is still too low. As far as the buyers are looking at it, they missed out 2 years ago.
Right.
And they're still looking backwards over their shoulder. For that reason, I think prices will continue to increase, not dramatically, but steady. And I think when you have a great house at a good price, a fair price, not not overpriced, not underpriced, it's going to sell.
Agreed, 100%. Mike, what do you think?
I think that the term recession probably or real estate recession requires a little definition as well. If you're talking about a price recession, that's unlikely, simply because of the inventory shortage. If you're talking about a volume recession, the number of sales or the amount of sales, sure, that's going to happen. I do think that interest rates are a major factor. And actually, the Mortgage Bankers Association had predicted that rates would be quite a bit higher at this point during the year than they actually are. They are predicting once again that rates will be into the 5% range in 2015, which would represent from this point probably a 0.75% or 1% rise. That will have an impact on the ability of people to qualify, and it will have an impact on people's interest in buying simply because of the cost of housing. There's an affordability issue, which will also affect the volume of activity. Affordability is falling. As prices rise, even if interest rates don't rise, affordability declines because the average income isn't rising at the same rate that real estate prices are rising. Interest rate rises will further exacerbate that problem. I think that the biggest concern is, do we reach a point where the majority of people just pull back and decide not to enter the market? And I think that's pretty unlikely because there are several groups which are not even in the market, which would make a huge difference in the market.
Like who?
Well, as an example, first-time home buyers are not in the market in the numbers that they typically would be. People under, say, 36 years old. Typically.
And that has to do with the declining affordability, right? Because, I mean, that's...
Well, I think it really has to do with a little bit of number one, it had to do with the general economy. There were a lot of people who got out of college who might have tried to enter the market right away, and they didn't, simply because they didn't get jobs quickly enough, or they didn't have the confidence in the economy to proceed with real estate, or they didn't have confidence in real estate. Then there are the affordability issues, certainly exacerbated by the fact that a lot of people getting out of college have massive student loans, and that makes it more difficult for them to qualify. But that segment of the population is likely to enter the market. I did a kind of a little analysis. If the average price property has risen in San Diego to about $500,000, and the average rent in San Diego is a little under $1,700. And if you bought a house with 20% down, and that house appreciated at 3% per year, which is a relatively low level of appreciation, the first point would be is you'd only be paying a couple $100 more a month for the housing expense after you adjust for tax benefits than you would for the rent. So, and the house, given a 3% level of appreciation, would actually produce about a 7% return on the dollars you've invested, because the bank mostly pays for the house by giving you the loan. So that was a little complicated.
No, I like where we're going with this. In fact, here's what we're going to do, because I have a take on what you're saying as well that I think can help clear the air about how people need to think about the overall process and the reasoning behind why you would buy a home. So when we come back, I'm going to kind of give you my version of what you said and how I think people really need to look at the process of buying a home. What are you actually doing when you buy a house? It's not what you think, not just from a, hey, we're going to live here standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. Let you in on a big secret. When we come back, we'll make you smarter than everyone else.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today it's Macro Monday on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome back. Thank you for hanging out. Mr. Credit here. Guaranteeing to make you smarter than everyone else. Got a fantastic show going on right now. Ginger Proffitt is here with ERA Property Movers. Michael Sedloff is here as well, mortgage broker, michaelsedloff.com. And what you were talking about, Mike, was basically just kind of the math side, the logical side of this is why you buy a house. And I think everyone needs to understand that. You get tax deduction, you got to do a full comparison. You actually have to look apples to apples and say, all right, what is my out-the-door cost? And the thing that I think gets missed in some of those rent-to-own comparisons or in some of that analysis is what you're really doing when you buy a house. Because what you're really doing when you buy a house financially is you are hedging. You're basically saying, all right, I know I could rent this house for $2,500, but I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to end up paying $3,300. Taxes, insurance, everything included, out the door. I'm going to end up paying $3,300, but I'm locked in virtually. I mean, taxes can change a little bit here and there, but I'm locking in this $3,300 for 30 years, and then I'm done. And that's what you're doing. And so you're hedging. You're saying, I'm going to hedge it at 33, but I get it for 30 years. So whereas if you rent the same place for $2,500, you might be great for the next year, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden, you might not anymore. It could go up and up and up and up. And if you look at rents, it really seems like that's going to be the case.
They're going up dramatically.
It's incredible, right?
Yes.
If you look at a community like San Francisco, which is in some ways like San Diego,
it is.
It's geographically landlocked, so they can't really build too many more houses. I have children who live in San Francisco, and they pay in the neighborhood of $3,000 a month for less than 1,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a bit more than you would typically pay in most parts of San Diego. But the statement really is that every community is going to have rising rents because there's only so much land and there's only so much housing, and those costs will go up over time. So if you compare the fact that you own a house where you have some control because you've purchased it early on versus
hedged.
your rents, you're hedging, your rents will go up. In the long run, you're probably better off to own the house. But the one point that I think is really important to make when it comes to owning a house is, technically speaking, a house shouldn't be looked at as an investment. Mm-hmm. It should be looked at as shelter, the place you live in. And you shouldn't expect it to return a lot of money very quickly to you. There have been years where that occurred. But for the most part, you should think of it as shelter, and you should think of it as a long-term decision, which gives you a hedge, gives you the shelter you want, and in some cases will give you a good return on your money.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. Just throw this one right at you. A little fastball for you here. So does buying a house, does it always make sense to buy, or are there some people who should rent?
No, I don't think it always does does not make sense in every case. It certainly doesn't make sense if you don't intend to stay in the community long term, or even, more than a few years, because your costs of getting into the house, even though you don't pay the commission to get into the house in most cases, your costs, there are some costs, there are improvements you typically do, and your costs of getting out, of selling, essentially mean that, if you buy a house today and try and sell it 6 months later, there could be a 10% differential on how much the house needs to have gone up for you to break even. It may not be that much. The point, however, is that in the short run, you're taking a risk. And if you don't expect to stay in the community and continue to own the house, then it may not make sense.
Okay. Yeah. No, I buy. That's exactly the way I feel about it. I mean, it's one of those things where if you have a long-term outlook, buying a house is the way to go, period.
Right.
If you have a long-term vision and you can make sense of it for your family plan, then you should always buy. But in some cases, like for example, I've known a couple of guys who've done really well at different times in their lives, and during those times they were in positions where they were making lots of money, but not necessarily the positions that you would see somebody do. It's like, do you really think you'll be doing that exact same thing and making that much money 10 years from now? These guys wanted to buy multi-million-dollar penthouses and crazy stuff like that. And I was able to convince them both to rent, because if you go and you look at the penthouses they wanted to buy, their payments would have been $10,000 a month, and you can rent those things out for $4,500. So it just didn't pencil. They were never going to be able to make those payments long term. They never were. There was no chance. You do have to do a little case by case, and I think it's great that you say that. Ginger, I want to ask you this, because earlier you mentioned something about the hot and cold aspect of the market, and how it doesn't seem like we're willing to accept it when it's just warm. It seems like because of the media, because people are involved, because of these websites that are out there these days where people are on blogging and looking up information about, real estate, it's more front of mind, which is great. I think it's great people are thinking about it. They're trying to be conscious and cognizant of what's going on in the market. But I think because of that, the headline people are always looking for a reason to write boom or bust. And so in San Diego specifically, if you just go back to the 9 years that I've lived here, okay, in the 9 years I've lived here, it was boom, bust, boom. We haven't had a warm market, just a normal, people say that, just a normal market where we get 3% a year. I don't know if that's even possible anymore in San Diego County.
I'm not sure there is such a thing as a normal market. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've never seen a normal market. It depends on, the market is the market, and we deal with what we have. It is always going to be a matter of supply and demand. And I do agree with what Mike said is the reason you buy a home is for a place to live in. It provides security, and that's what people are looking at. If you are trying to hit the market at the lowest level, it will always be in your rearview mirror.
Yep.
You will never get it. If you watch what's going on, don't pay too much for the house. you've got comps. You can look and get an idea of where the market is. If you are going to purchase a home that has more upgrades and you're not going to have to turn around and invest money into it right away, that needs to be considered. But I think, it is what it is. And I also agree with Mike. It has a lot to do with how long you're going to stay in the home. We find most people are staying in the home 7 to 9 years right now. I still have clients who've been in the home 2 years and less and have made money by selling, but it's because the decision was made when they purchased. And that's where the financial benefit comes in. If you buy right, you don't really need to worry about the rest. It's always going to be all right.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I agree with you both, by the way. Your main focus and when you're actually purchasing the home is to find one that's going to be your good home, the one you want to live in. This is your shelter. You're going to be happy with it. That's really important for the longevity's sake, which is what's going to give you kind of your guaranteed win in the long run, right? But I also still think that most people are going to look at it like an investment, no matter how much we tell them not to. And I also do think that when you think about location, it is a good idea. And here's why. Because the two are synonymous to one degree, okay? Whether or not, if you live in an area that's desirable, okay, the more desirable of a home you live in, the more value it has.
That's correct.
Right? So you should be thinking about, well, how, if I'm buying this house, how desirable is it going to be? How much is it going to be worth in the future? Because that helps you figure out how desirable it's going to be to live there. And so, and this is the reason why we looking in Fallbrook, Ginger, because I believe that Fallbrook is going to be a very desirable place to live in the future. It's going to become more and more desirable, and therefore more valuable as well. But I win on both ways, because if it's more desirable to live there and I live there, I'm happy. And if therefore that makes it worth more money, I'm happy.
You win all the way around. What we've got to remember is as you get closer to San Diego and as you get closer to the beach, prices are going to go up. So you're going to get less for your money. This is one of the reasons that some of these other communities have become so delightful. Fallbrook, Escondido, San Marcos, Valley Center, Rancho Bernardo, Poway, just to name a few, because you're able to get things that you cannot get anywhere else. First and foremost is a larger size lot. Your pricing is going to be less. You've got good, strong schools. You've got strong neighborhood. You've got a pride of ownership in most of these communities. And as long as you pay attention to things, you might walk in and see a house that is just ideal for you, but absolutely no one else is ever going to live there. And is it right? I don't know. I can't make that decision for you. But if you are looking at resale value, you need to pay attention.
Yeah.
I've had people who have lived in the flight pattern. It doesn't bother them a bit. But when I've shown that same home to other people, one airplane and they're done. I'm out of here. It just does not matter. So if your plan is to live in the home for a while and then resell and either purchase, a nicer home, use the investment, then you need to be extremely careful. If you plan to stay there long term, you still need to be careful because you never know what the future is going to hold. You might need to sell it, but you don't need to be as concerned.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think a big part of it is kind of choosing where you want to be. And I personally believe Fallbrook is one of those areas where you're going to see a lot of people gravitating towards. Number one, we're west of the 15 there.
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to kind of be a big deal one of these days, I believe. Being west of the 15 will be a big deal. And kind of having that mid-range area. There's so much you can get to in such a short time in Fallbrook.
That's correct.
You can get down to San Diego very easily. Orange County, L.A. are not far away. You also have access to some of the other areas. East Temecula's right there. You can just get to so many different things. It's very central, and I think you're seeing both San Diego growing north, and you're also seeing Orange County, Temecula, and those areas growing south. And so those things are all good macro things that would lead you to believe it will become more valuable and therefore more desirable to live there.
And it's hard to find a rural atmosphere.
Very good point.
There's a few cities, as far as North County goes, really your very best are either Valley Center or Fallbrook, because this is one of the few places where you don't have the housing developments, one on top of another.
Yeah, very good point. And to that point, when we come back, I'll tell you, I was recently speaking with the president of the Building Industry Association here in San Diego, Michael Harris. I'll tell you what he said, his advice about buying real estate in San Diego. He said to do this. I'll tell you that. When we come back, we'll make you smarter than everyone else.
If you would like free advice from Mr. Credit, just call or text 619-786-7853. That's 619-786-7853.
Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today it's Macro Monday on ESPN Radio 1700.
All right, welcome back. Macro Monday. Mr. Credit here. We're talking about the big picture in the San Diego real estate market today with Michael Sedloff, mortgage broker. You can find him at michaelsedloff.com. Ginger Proffitt is here as well with ERA Property Movers and EscondidoHousePros.com. Newly designed.
Yes.
EscondidoHousePros.com. What can you do on EscondidoHousePros.com, Ginger?
It's probably one of the most comprehensive search engines for new homes that you're looking for that there is on the market.
Really?
You can search by map. You can search by almost any criteria that you want.
So if you're searching, you want to search homes, go to EscondidoHousePros.com. So here's what Michael Harris told me. To your point about the lot sizes in Fallbrook and Valley Center. He said, and now keep in mind, he's the president of the Building Industry Association. So he's very pro-building, and he's watching the numbers. And he told me, the first thing he told me was, I'm watching the numbers get smaller every year. The number of new homes that are being built gets smaller every year, and drastically some years. And it's not going to go up. So he said to me, buy a house with an acre of land, if you can find one, and that thing will be worth so much money down the road because they are no longer building properties like that. They're just not. They're not building houses like that anymore. All these new developments that they have are just, they're just stamping them right next to each other, and that's what it is. And that's the future of home building in San Diego, is maximizing the space you have because there's just not that much left.
Probably 5 years ago, we were told that in San Diego County, instead of building out, because there is no space, they're going to start building up. And I've been showing new construction recently. I am amazed at the number of 3-story homes there is.
Really?
Yes, where you walk in on one level, you've got an entry and the garage. You walk up to the next level, you have the living room, the kitchen, bathroom. Then you go up to the next level for the bedrooms, which, considering we have an aging population, I'm not sure how wise it is, but I think there will be no choice.
Problematic for sure. Michael, what do you think?
I just think that just going back to the issue of whether you should buy with land or whether you should buy in a more rural community, I think you really need to consider how you live your life. And if you're an urbanite, then you don't want to buy in a suburban area. If you are a surfer or like being near the water, you're going to give something up to live near the water because it's more expensive. But you probably won't be driving a half an hour to work every day in traffic or to get to the beach, for instance, because you'll probably be living closer to where you work and play. And a number of years ago, there was a big group that bought houses in Temecula, and I don't have anything against Temecula, but they bought them because they were less expensive. And they worked downtown San Diego, some worked in Escondido, and they commuted. A lot of those people found that when the economy declined, because there was so much new construction in Temecula, that their values plummeted more than other areas. In addition, they found that their commute with the cost of gas and the time on the freeway just made life very difficult for themselves. So I'm sure Temecula is a lovely community to live in. But if you don't like commuting or you want to live near the beach, then you might have to give something up to live where you're more comfortable.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, everyone's got to factor in, where do we work?
But
where
here's
do we go?
the dichotomy is the price of the homes. So few people can afford to live on the beach. And you are right. The reason that and Temecula and Murrieta are doing a huge rebound right now. They had a larger number of foreclosures probably than anyone else for a lot of the reasons that you just stated. That's accurate. But it is a great place for young families. And we are seeing more and more young families that are saying it's worth it to me to have the drive. On the other hand, I also have a lot of people coming from Temecula who are tired of that drive, and they end up in Escondido because it's halfway. So the drive isn't there. So it's strictly a personal thing. You really don't know. It's more difficult if both are working down in San Diego. That makes a very difficult drive to get the kids taken care of, get the kids to school, and then both the parents are having to do this. But I'm finding more and more. I just sold a home in Temecula 2 weeks ago where the wife is going to be a stay-at-home mom because the difference in house payments is going to allow her to give up her job, actually stay home with her child, which is something she has wanted to do for years and years, and the husband will be doing the commute.
Yeah, and that's a lifestyle accommodation adjustment that they made, and they bought.
Yes.
So they bought in Temecula.
They bought in Temecula. There's very little rentals in Temecula.
I know. It's a thinner market than people believe, and it's really nice up there. Here's one thing you try to do. Try to call a Temecula winery bed and breakfast on a Thursday and get a room for Friday or Saturday. Good luck.
Won't happen.
I'm telling you. It won't happen. I don't know how far in advance you have to book, but multiple times now we've tried to book last-second trips, and there's nothing.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's draw to that area for that reason. And, you don't really, hear about, the ocean or ocean breezes or anything like that. And Temecula, it's a different world, but it's wine country world, and that also has its own unique appeal.
It's wine country, and it's family friendly.
Yeah.
And that's what people who are moving to that area are looking for.
Yeah.
Derek, one thing on the comment by the head of the BIA or the Business Industry Association, Building Industry Association, traditionally San Diego County has had parts of the decade, typically at the end of the decade, where property values appreciated fairly dramatically, and parts of the decade where real estate values were either flat or declining. Usually flat as opposed to declining. This most recent period, the last 5 years, is a bit of an anomaly. I think that in the future, we'll find that there will be new construction, and as you indicated, it will probably be, as Ginger said, actually, it'll probably be high-rise construction. Mm-hmm. But it takes a long time to build a high-rise building. First to get the approvals, and then to get it up, and then to get it sold, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of why what tends to happen is you tend to have periods like we have now where you have major periods of housing shortages and prices rise dramatically. And then you have flat periods where they actually overbuild or build enough to meet demand, and so on and so forth. Interest rates will have a major impact on that scenario as well. Even though interest rates will likely rise, they're probably not going to rise anytime in the near future to levels which will prohibit people from buying. And then at some point, they may actually fall back a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you get a bunch of people who want to jump in the market because the cost of housing and interest rates has fallen back.
Yeah, you're right. No one has a crystal ball that I'm aware of, right? Yes. But we can say that looking back, there was an amazing opportunity. And so I think what people should do is try to become cognizant, try to keep a finger on the pulse of things, to be able to recognize what type of market we're in. And that's part of what we try to accomplish with the show. We bring on different professionals, get different perspectives, help to try to bring all this stuff up to the surface so that you out there listening, you can say, all right, I know quite a bit about this stuff because I happen to catch the lunch hour weekdays at noon on ESPN 1700 with Mr. Credit. This has been a fantastic show. I really appreciate you taking the time. Michael Sedloff, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
Very good stuff. Author of Bella Will Rally, Michael Sedloff, and michaelsedloff.com. And, of course, the Proffitt, Ginger Proffitt, my real estate agent in the studio today as well with ERA Property Movers, and also owner and author at the brand new website where you can do the most comprehensive search, you said, Ginger?
Yes.
For new properties, escondidohousepros.com, the brand new website that she's got going. Thank you very much for being here today.
It's been a delight, Derek.
I look forward to doing it again with you both. In fact, we'll be back again tomorrow at noon to make you smarter than everyone else. We'll see you then.
If you would like to contact Mr. Credit or access any free offers mentioned on the show, just go to MrCredit.org. That's MrCredit.org.